I've talked a lot on the Spector Creative channel here about my Marvel Legends collection, specifically my X-Men collection. And here it is. It's definitely kind of a pride and joy of mine because, well, I've spent over 25 years collecting this line, and I'm so close to finishing it. A big part of what I wanted was to have the core teams, the X-Men Red and Blue from '92, the new X Factor team that was launched at the time, X Force, the Liefeld version, and then the core bad guys, Brotherhood of Mutants, Mojo, Sentinel, Mr. Sinister back there, Juggernaut, etc., etc. Hey, even Apocalypse shows up. And I sprung for that giant, HasLab figure because, why not? Now, there are some figures like Moira McTaggart there that I wasn't expecting to get, but for the most part, this entire collection has been pre-planned for over 25 years. And there are some holes in the collection. There are some deliberate spots that you can see are empty, where there is no figure. And those have sat empty for 25 years as I've slowly built this up. And I'm kind of making this video today. Here's the other one. Here's another big blank spot there. And you can see these blank spots are deliberate. They're not just left there arbitrarily. They're placeholder spots for figures that I want as part of what I would consider my complete collection. And I enjoy looking at it. I enjoy having it. And why do I do this? Well, back in 1992, when, X-Men were probably the most popular characters, and, that was back before the Avengers had a movie. We had X-Force, we had X-Factor, we had, X-Men 280, where was it, 281, I think? Yeah, 281, that introduced the new team, and then, of course, Jim Lee's X-Men #1, which kicked off everything with not one, not two, not three, but, 4 covers, because that's what you got to do when you want to have the best-selling comic book of all time, is sell it 5 times. The 5th one being that giant Gatefeld cover, which I actually ripped off and put on my wall because, well, the comic book is pretty much worth less than cover price, and I think that the cover makes a better poster than it does a comic book. All right, that's not where I'm going with this. That's just kind of showing how big the X-Men were, and obviously there were other big things happening with the X-Men at this time. There was the animated series, and more importantly for me, there was also the trading cards. This was a huge part of how I learned as a sort of, I guess, a teen or a young adult about the Marvel Universe, starting with the Marvel Universe cards proper. I got the 91, 92, and 93 sets, if I recall. And these were really, really inspirational to me. This was before, we had the internets. And if you wanted to learn about characters, this is how you did it. So when the Jim Lee X-Men set came out, I was all in. I was like, oh, this is great. I can finally learn about all these characters. And by the way, have you ever wondered why with this Jim Lee set, the first 9 cards, or I think even 10, were done as horizontal cards, while the rest of them are all vertical? So there's actually an interesting story behind this. And I was fortunate once to be at a social occasion, and I wound up in the valet line with Jim Lee. And I'm standing next to him. I was like, Jim, Mr. Lee, I was always curious, why is it that the first ones were horizontal? He told me it was because he thought the whole set was supposed to be horizontal. And when he walked in with the first 9 drawings to management, they said, yeah, Mr. Lee, Jim they're supposed to be vertical. So he's like, all right, the rest will be vertical, except for the team cards. So yeah, that's why that happened. Kind of funny. Anyway, speaking of the team cards, this was a big thing too, because I could learn not only who the characters were from their individual cards, but, how they came together as teams and how the teams evolved over time, because you could get each set of cards for each year and you could see who joined the team, who left the team, who got new costumes. And this is really what inspired me to get specific teams like, X-Men Gold and Blue, and X Factor, the new version from issue 71, and of course X Force, and then the main villains, which, Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, Mystique, etc., etc. Now, a big part of my reason for doing this was also the Toy Biz X-Men line that started in '91. While the original batch of figures were cool, they weren't in the outfits that they were in the comics at the time, since Jim Lee redid most of them. But by the time the second series came out in '92, they caught up with this, and everyone got updated into their animated look / current comic book look. Plus, we got that really cool X-Force spin-off line that got us all sorts of crazy characters that had never had toys before. So, yeah, if you were an X-Men fan, this was a really cool time to be collecting toys. And I especially was really excited the fact that they were all in that blue and gold look. Even, Banshee, who had a more popular green look. And that was going to make them look really cool on shelf. But I never bought these. And that always left a big hole, I guess, in my toy collecting, that I always wanted to have a really awesome 1992 X-Men Mutant set. But at the time, it was kind of that between time of being a kid and an adult, when toy collecting was, well, maybe it was time to walk away from that because something else happened in 1992. And, well, let's just say, I was inspired to grow up. Yeah, I discovered women and Pepsi. No, I didn't discover Pepsi, but I definitely discovered Cindy Crawford. Well, I mean, not like Magellan discovered things, but you know what I mean. And that meant it was kind of time to turn my back on buying toys because I wasn't yet a collector. I was sort of a kid, and I was a collector no more. Obviously, this would change, and a big part of this was when the Marvel Legends line came out, as well as Todd McFarlane's Spawn and the 1995 Power of the Force 2 figures from Hasbro. And it was a chance with Toy Biz Marvel Legends to now finally get those X-Men figures I wished I always got. I passed on all of those, and I always regretted it. But these were better. These were more articulated. They were taller. They were more detail. So I was really excited, and I did start collecting quite a few of the Toy Biz X-Men figures, but they were slow in release, and we didn't really get the whole team, and some of the ones that Toy Biz did were a little goofy. But luckily, when Hasbro got the license, they redid almost every figure that Toy Biz did, and they made them better, more articulated. Granted, we lost, finger articulation, but you really don't need finger articulation, trust me. So there are a few Toy Biz figures that still remain in my collection that I haven't replaced, and usually this is a personal thing because I actually find the Toy Biz figure to be superior to a later Hasbro one. Case in point, Nightcrawler here. The original version had an articulated tail and articulated toes, so he could sort of stand on his toes like he does a lot in the content. I did buy the new Hasbro Nightcrawler, but I just kind of put him elsewhere in my toy room, my office. And, with the inanimate carbon rod. In Rod we trust. And, of course, also Apocalypse, and you can see behind him Omega Red, two other figures that I kept from my Toy Biz days, just because I felt these were superior versions. And there was also things like using the accessory for Gambit, that his card I thought was better, so I gave that to the Hasbro version of the figure. So there is some mix and match, and there's some early Hasbro figures, such as the Savage Land pack that had Shayna and Kazar, so I almost said Kazar in it. And yes, I do have Savage Dragon, Mighty Spector, and Super Patriot in there because it's my collection, and these are some of my favorite characters. So what are you going to do? Fight about it? All right, so with this collection, now, explaining what sort of inspired me to do this was really the lack of having these toys because it came out when I walked away. Why these empty spots? Why holes? Why deliberate holes in my collection? Well, that's all part of the planning too. And I'm curious if this is something that you also collect by. Holes, that is. Now, I've been keeping a list for 25 years of all the figures I wanted as part of this set. I also do this for my 90s Spider-Man figures. And that's exactly why the holes are there. The holes represent figures that I mean to get. Now, there have been a few, like I said, Moira McTaggart, that weren't on the list, but she's about it. There really aren't too many others that sort of surprised and delighted me that they got released. And the holes that I have are for specific figures. Avalanche is part of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants that I've wanted to get, and completing the Brotherhood with the new Blob figure. I missed out on the Hasbro original Blob, but this one I think is so much better, so I don't really regret that too much. And then Banshee is also coming out and has already been announced, and as I said, I wanted to get this version because it was from this version, not the green classic Banshee, because I wanted the one from 92. And then, of course, there's the feral-shaped hole that is still not going to be filled anytime soon because, unlike the others, she hasn't been previewed or, announced that she's coming out as a figure, and she's necessary in order to complete that whole X-Force set. So, yeah, the way I collect these, I knew exactly which figures, minus Moira McTaggart, were going to be on my shelf. And everyone was sort of predetermined. What I'm also kind of bummed about is the fact that, I've wanted Feral for decades, but I'm going to have to pay like $30 for her by the time she comes out. Everyone else, I pretty much got for about 20 bucks. I mean, a few of the figures from the last year cost 25, but with the prices skyrocketing, I'm so glad that I got 90% of my collection when the prices were reasonable, I guess you could say. I mean, the Sentinel was 350 bucks, but, that was a hole that had to be filled. So, I'm curious, do you collect this way? Do you collect by holes? Do you have a very specific set you want to get? Let me know, not just X-Men, but for anything you collect. And is this been a beneficial way of tracking your collection over the years? Curious. Let me know in the comments. Share this video if you can. It's the best way to support this channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.